Hello, everybody. Welcome to TSC Talks, Virtual Holiday Market. Jill here. I am your host. I am here with the world-renowned Janna Champagne. She is, yes, I want to do her justice. I've got my special holiday necklace here to celebrate. Yeah, I appreciate Janna coming on and participating in our market. Janna, I've interviewed her on the podcast. She has a phenomenal background, and she's going to educate us on many of the things that she's doing. She is on the graduate faculty at John Patrick University. She's the founder of Autism Safe Haven. She is involved in educating patients, medical professionals, industry staff. She is well-versed in symptom-targeted medical cannabis formulating, as well as research, review, written. She's authored articles. So just a prominent cannabis advocate. I think many people have in the audience possibly have heard of her. And I just appreciate what she's doing to push the knowledge and understanding of using cannabis for autism, particularly for anybody out there with TSC. This is a really important episode to watch. So thanks, Janna.
Thank you for having me, Jill.
You're welcome.
Glad to be here.
So I guess we are going to play Janna's video here. I'm just going to cue that up, and then we will get into a conversation. So without further ado, unless you wanted to start off and say anything before we play the video.
No, I think the video covers a lot.
Okay. So yeah, it does. It's a great video, and I'm just going to make sure I do the screen share first or get it all set up so there's no awkward pauses other than the ones I usually have. Okay, just a second.
It's part of being live.
Yeah, I've been live like a lot, so I'm getting more comfortable, but still not okay. I got to remember to share the sound because I've done that before. Optimize, share. Okay, so we are going to watch this. I'm going to start it. The need for cannabis inclusive autism care resources. Ready to roll. Make it.
Hello, my name is Janna Champagne, and I'm a cannabis nurse, founder of Integrated Holistic Care, and a champion for the Institute of Cannabinoid Medicine. Today, I'd like to talk about a subject of great personal passion, the desperate need for cannabis-inclusive autism care resources. Now, you might ask yourself, how does one become passionate about such a topic? Suffice it to say, it's been a journey. My path to cannabis nursing started back in 2012 when I experienced the profound healing of the sacred plant upon suffering a health collapse and becoming a cannabis patient myself. Cannabis use helped me wean off my pharmaceutical dependence while facilitating deeper levels of healing than ever thought possible, including complete reversal of autoimmune disease. So I'm really a cannabis patient who happens to be a nurse. I progressed to begin growing cannabis in 2014, working with different strains and phenotypes and caregiving for patient cardholders, which fed my knowledge and understanding of the sacred plant. I'm also mom to a teen daughter with autism, and as it happens, a couple of years into my own health recovery, cannabis also eased her situation. She suffered extreme symptoms of autism puberty crisis, the severity of which risked her being placed out of home due to self-injury, aggression towards others, and property-damaging behaviors, primarily pain-related symptoms. Thankfully, intervening with cannabis successfully eased those symptoms while also improving her speech, academic performance, quality of life, and overall function. These are my cannabis passion makers, driving my dedication to always follow cannabis patients' needs. So here's a summary of my roles in the cannabis industry in reverse order. And this is the journey of following patients' needs and the culmination of that journey. Since recovering, I've been blessed to utilize the knowledge earned through these personal experiences to help thousands of individual patients optimize their cannabis therapy outcomes as a nurse specializing in clinical application of cannabis, with one specialty being pediatrics and autism. While I'm not currently taking new patients, my current focus is educating medical professionals on cannabis and endocannabinoid science, with accredited content for nurses, and my upcoming course, SCI 306, Cannabis and CBD Formulations, launching January 2021 at the Institute of Integrative Medicine and Nutrition at John Patrick University. I'm so excited to be creating next level cannabis education content in cooperation with John Patrick University and the Institute of Cannabinoid Medicine, which will cumulatively reach more patients than I ever could alone. I also provide open source cannabis patient education through my websites, cannabisnurseapproved.com, which certifies and highlights medical cannabis products, and integratedholisticare.com, offering educational blog posts and patient handbook downloads that are free to email subscribers. Following patient needs also spawned my latest venture upon realizing the importance of medical quality, symptom-targeted cannabis formulations. The custom cannabis blends from Unity Formulas at unityformulas.com are based on years of experience recommending custom cannabis recipes for my patients. Unity offers symptom-targeted, gold standard medical quality products from which the sales profits benefit nonprofit Autism Safe Haven, which is coincidentally the main focus of my talk today. Autism Safe Haven is a nonprofit whose purpose is addressing the need for cannabis-inclusive autism care resources, and our website is www.autismsafehaven.org. So there's the summary version of my cannabis journey, from cannabis patient to cannabis nurse educator and advocate. I've shared our detailed stories extensively in interviews, and for links or more information, please visit my Media Kit website, www.jannachampagne.com. So many of us are blessed to love someone with autism, and for those who aren't as familiar with this disorder, here's a little background. Children with autism are often less mature than their chronological age and have social, communication, and sensory impairments, and many require lifelong caregiving supports. Autism is a developmental disability characterized by underlying imbalances in the gastrointestinal, immune, and neurological systems, with rampant underlying medical disorders. These imbalances contribute to high levels of inflammation, and pain is a common symptom that often escapes proper diagnosis and treatment from the mainstream approach. You may have heard the phrase, if you know one kid with autism, you know one kid with autism. This is because autism is a spectrum disorder, meaning that there is a broad range of impact severity, and each case is unique. In severe cases, individuals with autism are limited or nonverbal, and behavior becomes the primary form of communication. Common autism behaviors include aggression, self-injury, and tantrums. I wrote an article on this subject with a citation below, which also includes research outcomes supporting cannabis for promoting balance in the gastrointestinal, immune, and neurological symptoms, making it a promising option for targeting autism imbalances. Here's a brief overview of the most common benefits in those using cannabis for autism. Cannabis provides a safer and more effective alternative to harmful pharmaceuticals for managing symptoms in tens of thousands with autism in the US. It's common to see a reduction in reliance or even complete weaning from harmful pharmaceuticals, meanwhile improving quality of life and function when cannabis is added to a daily autism treatment regimen. Mounds of research exists supporting cannabis as safe and effective intervention for treating those with autism, exemplified further by tens of thousands of case studies and real patient outcomes. Inhaled or sublingual forms of cannabis are fast-acting and powerful tools for de-escalating behavior exacerbations and calming the crisis situations common in autism. Medical professionals take an oath to provide objective education to patients regarding the risk versus benefit of all possible medical options to facilitate fully informed medical decisions and patient autonomy. The safety profile of cannabis is unsurpassed, and when approached objectively, cannabis is often the first logical choice as a medical intervention to address autism behaviors. So here's some more of the science supporting cannabis for autism, with outcomes reflecting that autism is endocannabinoid deficiency. Let's stop and reflect on that statement for just a minute, because it's really important. The term endocannabinoid deficiency was coined by Dr. Ethan Russo back in 2004 to describe a condition in which our body cannot produce enough endocannabinoids or internal cannabinoids, which as it turns out are vital nutrients for mammals. So when our body struggles to make enough endocannabinoids, the resulting systemic imbalances causing dysregulation, as is found underlying autism symptoms. And it gets better. Supplementing with phytocannabinoids, or those produced by the Cannabis sativa L plant, exactly mimics the function of the endocannabinoids we make internally, thus improving endocannabinoid deficiency status. So not only is cannabis great for targeting autism symptoms and easing suffering, it's also filling a vital nutrient deficiency found in autism in a safer manner with fewer side effects. And I know what you're probably thinking, like, why isn't cannabis more widely utilized for those with autism? And that's a great question. There are some considerations and possible barriers to using cannabis for autism or for pediatric patients in general. Of course, anything beyond what's needed for medical cannabis use, specifically for the intoxicating components, is never appropriate when treating children or adolescents. Luckily, this does not present a risk factor for most, although this should be assessed by a medical professional. The patient and family's state of residence is unfortunately still a potential legal issue as of now, October of 2020. The MORE Act is currently pending, potentially alleviating the current trend of cannabis refugee autism families that have to move to a legal state in order to access legal medical cannabis for their child with autism. Concurrent use of pharmaceuticals is an often neglected consideration and once again warrants medical oversight. Genetic factors such as AKT1, which is the only known contraindication to THC due to schizophrenia risk, should also be assessed in children prior to THC use. Methylation genetic mutations, also common to autism, can be optimized through nutrigenomics, which may reduce the risk of neurodevelopmental issues with THC use in childhood and adolescence. So once again, it takes a medical professional to weigh the risk versus benefit of cannabis in these cases. Specialization in these medical cannabis approaches to autism is an integral part of the autism safe haven model, although there are important synergistic aspects as well. So Autism Safe Haven is the solution to the lack of dignified living options for those with autism, which often leaves parents to fill the caregiver role for longer than they may feel capable. It's common for autism parents to express fear of dying before their child, knowing the nightmare of current options available to provide lifelong autism care and support. The few decent programs that are available often have years-long wait lists, while offering little to no focus on residents' quality of life or on promoting optimized function. This explains why so many autism parents are driving the solutions to this growing problem. We are passion-driven. Care that facilitates cannabis access is another big issue. You see, cannabis-inclusive autism care doesn't currently exist. Even in Oregon, where cannabis flows really freely, the best case scenario is a residential care home that still requires parents to be on call to supplement their child's cannabis needs when needed. That's not true respite. This does not support patient autonomy either, which is the choice of the cannabis patient to choose and make their own medical decisions about what to utilize. And this is a foundational aspect of our current medical system. So this needs to be translated to our autism world as well. Thankfully, nurses in Oregon, the location of our first autism safe haven home, can legally administer cannabis medicine, and autism and its symptoms easily meet our OMMP qualifying criteria for legal medical cannabis access. Some other complicating factors include this autism prevalence that is continuing to rise unabated in the United States and has already increased from 1 in 10,000 back in the 1970s to 1 in 59 as of 2014. And that's school-age children that are age 5 and above. So that's actually a 2019 statistic. Stephanie Seneff, PhD, is a renowned MIT scientist and autism researcher, and she predicts that autism will impact 1 in 2 live births by the year 2025. And that's 5 years from now in 2020. Considering how 2020 has gone so far, I'm betting we're right on target for that increase. So this problem continues growing, and we will need a better solution for those with autism. In addition, it's estimated that 50% of children with autism suffer a behavioral crisis with puberty onset, which is a common catalyst for resulting out-of-home placement due to safety concerns, as we lived through. Unfortunately, the current models for autism behavior management primarily utilize physical restraints and pharmaceuticals, combined with minimal caregiver training, the result being multiple home failures and even physical harm to residents. These subpar approaches jeopardize quality of life, function, and ability to optimize potential in those with autism. We can do so much better, and Autism Safe Haven is a solution. I hope I've exemplified the desperate need for improving autism care approaches with cannabis-inclusive options, focus on competent behavior management, and functional optimization. The Autism Safe Haven approach is based on this very combination of targeted autism therapies, which sets us apart from the other options. We believe behavior is communication, and I can't even tell you how often treating a pre-verbal child or even adult with autism for inflammation and pain mellows out their behaviors and reduces the likelihood of even more traumatic needs like out-of-home placement and being removed from their family and their family home. So this is a compassionate care model, and the Autism Safe Haven approach is a viable solution to test, research, and duplicate this model in every legal cannabis state. The inspiration for this project is my daughter, Geneva, a teen girl with autism expected to require lifelong and intensive caregiving supports. So in this case, necessity truly was the mother of invention. I chose a unique path for treating my daughter as referenced today, including cannabis and other natural alternatives to pharmaceuticals, with heavy focus on her quality of life and optimizing function, and use of other researched autism supports like ABA therapy. Having been disillusioned by the subpar options available to care for my daughter, I understand firsthand the desperate need for improved autism care and supports. I unwittingly became a prominent advocate for autism families after my daughter's cannabis and autism success story published on the cover of a nationwide magazine in 2017. And you can read this on my website, www.integratedholisticcare.com/news is the link for that story. This is a sketch of my home of 17 years in Medford, Oregon, which has had significant remodeling to repair it following my daughter's autism puberty crisis. This home provides a safe and supportive, behavior-resilient environment, which we will open and share with autism patients in need. It boasts high security measures like a 6-foot fence surrounding the property, tempered glass, unbreakable windows, behavior-proof walls that are literally 1/4-inch plywood with beadboard over the top, and other disability safety features, all without compromising its appearance as a home versus a commercial facility, which was also very important to us. Remodeling to convert to a residential care home is nearly complete, and we're back on track following some 2020 related delays. Support for this program has already launched potential initiatives in California, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Washington, with potential to duplicate this model in all legal cannabis states seeking answers for their resident cannabis patients with autism. We are also planning phase 2, which is an all-inclusive community model, boasting self-sufficiency and job training options as additions to the home model. Our goal is to help those with autism feel and function better than ever expected. We can do so much better for those with autism and their families. Please visit our website, www.autismsafehaven.com, for more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to our cause. From all of us that love someone with autism, Thank you for considering support of this important project.
Wow, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've read through it and I've watched it before, but I got to stop this. Whoopsie. Sorry. Ah,
You're all right.
well, one moment. Okay, now I'm back. That's just it's just so inspiring and incredible as a parent that I have 3 children with tuberous sclerosis, and one is living in a group home, and right now we are dealing with behavior problems. So, and I was in a meeting earlier today to discuss how to manage, and I think that I don't want to, talk too much about it, but knowing about this now, as opposed to, the sooner the better, that if you have a child with autism and you're thinking about the future and you haven't explored cannabis, I really feel like you owe it to yourself to explore it at this point in history. So
yeah, well, just depending on the situation. I mean, autism is endocannabinoid deficiency. We have so much research supporting cannabis for autism. For anything from autism anandamide levels being less optimal, and so cannabis fills that gap just perfectly. Not to mention that it's so great for not only managing the symptoms of autism, but it's also doing some of that deeper work and filling in an underlying deficiency. So it's just huge. Any parents that are considering it, I really urge you to look into it and try it for your child. So
thank you. Yeah. And, I think that talking about your other businesses and tying that all together would be really helpful for people out there listening that are, maybe hearing some of this for the first time. So you have Unity Formulas, and you are the co-owner of that. Is that correct? Or
yeah.
owner?
Yeah, basically the recipes are mine. It goes back to when I was growing cannabis and helping patients. I very quickly realized that not all strains are equal for all needs, and that certain strains were really good for pain and other ones were good for sleep and other ones were good for depression. And so when I would grow a strain that was just outstanding for something, I would get a lab profile on it so we could duplicate it. And so a lot of them are duplicated from when I was growing and realizing different plants are, and the different profiles and what we can apply them to most successfully, but also learning the research and working with patients. I've been custom blending cannabis products for my patients for years with the same supplier that's producing the Unity for me. And so it goes back to patient experience as well. We've actually worked with patients and problem solved and done custom blends. And so we're just finally making it official. And I never wanted to have my own product line as a nurse working with patients. I always felt like, I wanted to make it very clear I was not benefiting from that referral to a product line just for my own comfort and my own, as a patient myself, I'm very aware of, how can I help other patients? And I'm not as focused on that piece. So the only way I would do it is if all of the profit that I would normally get is going to Autism Safe Haven. And so that's where Unity and Autism Safe Haven are connected. And really Autism Safe Haven, we're trying to build multiple corporate sponsors and for-profit sponsors to feed the nonprofit. So that's just one of those entities.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. So
thank you. You're the one that connected me to that idea. So thank you, Jill.
Yeah. Well,
there's people doing, you connected me with them. This is their business model. And they said, you're doing the same thing we are here. Use our stuff and use our model. So it's been a beautiful gift, and so appreciate that.
That's great. Yeah. And, when I was, I just hope that your project goes forward quickly and it can be duplicated, because I think there is just such a huge need, and it's been exacerbated by the COVID situation across the country for these individuals. Funding's been cut. There's just like you said in your video, there's just really limited options, and it's really it's like choosing between a rock and a hard place for parents. So
Yeah, it really can be when, you consider your child as well managed at home with cannabis, but if they go somewhere else to be cared for, that's not an option. Parents are
Yes.
literally on call to meet their child's needs around cannabis, which can mean at any given point, they have to drop everything, grab the vape pen and run,
Yeah. So
across town to give it to them, and sometimes even take them off campus. So can you imagine your child's like in the middle of a tantrum and you're having to try to get them into the car and off campus? It's not a good option for parents. It really isn't.
Yeah, it's not really long-term workable. Yeah. So this eliminates that problem. It's not respite. Not in any way.
Yeah, it's not respite. On call 24/7. That's not respite.
No. So yeah, and I'm seeing more and more parents, I think that we can take this conversation wherever you want to, but I'm seeing more parents in the TSC community using Epidiolex, which is the pharma version. And, while, I think there are some drawbacks to that. I think that in certain parts of the areas of the country, there's just nothing else. And that's really frustrating because until we get everybody, it's more integrated into our medical system, which seems like an impossibility. Sometimes, I don't know. So yeah, all the more reason to embrace this project and your work. So,
well, and that brings up an important point. So Epidiolex is CBD isolate.
Yep.
Which research supports is not optimal, specific for seizures, which is its use. And there's specific studies showing that whole plant spectrum CBD far surpasses the benefits of isolate CBD for seizures specifically. And yet, Epidiolex sometimes, I'm frozen. Sometimes patients need to resort to that because that's the only way they can get their CBD covered by insurance.
Exactly.
But you can get whole plant from CBD throughout the United States. It's completely legal. It'll ship anywhere. I think the only states where they don't specifically have CBD allowed through regulation, so it's still kind of gray areas like Idaho and Nebraska, but it can go anywhere else. So this is always an option, and it's you can read about the F.L.O.W criteria. There's an article, I think I sent it to you. It's on cannabisnurseapproved.com under the tab, and it explains the F.L.O.W criteria that we use to gauge whether a CBD product is optimal for therapeutic use. And it's flower-derived, lab-tested, organic, and whole plant spectrum. And of course, Unity formula products all meet those criteria. Only about 10% of the suppliers for CBD in the United States meet these criteria. So it is very rare. There's a subpar product on the market, unfortunately.
Can you just go through the F.L.O.W criteria a little more in detail? I get that question a lot. How do I decide, what's a good product, and just highlight that. And I have the article. I can even share the article if you want to go through it, though.
Share the link. It's very simple. F.L.O.W. So F is for flower derived. This is specific to CBD. It's not as optimal to have a product that is deriving their CBD from industrial hemp. They're using the stalks and the stems and all different kinds of portions of the plant. You really want flower derived exclusively or almost exclusively, because that's where you're going to get the broadest spectrum and the best potency. It also reduces the risk of toxins, because industrial hemp is a bioaccumulator. It has this big stalk in the middle that accumulates all these toxins in the soil. It's great for the soil. I mean, they planted it all around the Chernobyl accident site for that purpose.
Did they?
But then to be pressing out that stalk and making therapeutic products out of it, it's not as optimal that way either.
Right.
The L is for lab tested. You want lab tested to high potency and purity. There was an experiment done recently where a bunch of random CBD products were purchased and tested, and most of them failed to match what was on the label with what was in the bottle. And so you really want to make sure not only that the potency and the milligrams you're being sold are correct, and you're not being, deceived
by
that, but you also want to make sure it's pure. So labeling is very important. Always organic. You want the base product to be organic. Once again, you don't want to be, taking toxins if you're a sick person looking to get well. That's just going to, offset any benefit. And then W is the most important, and it's whole plant spectrum. And what this article that we'll link from cannabisnurseapproved.com under the Learn tab explains is that with whole plant spectrum, what the research supports is that it's works better or as well at 20 to 25% of the dose of a product that's not whole plant spectrum, meaning whole plant spectrum is concentrating the cannabis flower with its hundreds of compounds as closely as possible to as nature intended with minimal loss, versus a CO2 extracted product usually has about a dozen components in the final product, or isolate like Epidiolex is one compound. And what the research says is not only does it work better at lower dosing, but the isolate and CO2 exert a bell curve response in the body, meaning the optimal therapeutic margin is very, very narrow. So it'll peak at some point as you're increasing your dosing, and then it'll drop off and stop working. So patients could be spending a lot of money for super high intensive dosing of CBD and literally maybe be on this side of the bell curve where they're getting little to no benefit. And so if you're targeting the deeper healing benefits of CBD, it can literally make or break somebody's response and their ability to reach their goals with CBD. So it's very important. We don't, as humans, it's, in my opinion, it's pure human ego to think we can improve upon the perfection of nature with our human altered cannabis products. And, this has also become problematic. Like, we're realizing that the unsurpassed safety profile of whole plant spectrum CBD does not translate to human altered products, because we're changing the bioavailability. We're changing how they interact with pharmaceuticals, and we don't really understand how we're changing it. We understand it's not as good. We understand that much, but we really should not. There's a lot of deceptive marketing that like full spectrum for CO2 products that are deceiving patients into purchasing some things that are really not optimal for therapeutic use, unfortunately. So this has become a big soapbox for me, obviously.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you going over it, because I do get a lot of questions about that. And particularly with Epidiolex, that it starts out being okay, and then there seems to be, and I'm not a nurse, so I'm not explaining it from a medical perspective, but it's like your receptors are not, when you're adding in another cannabinoid, whether it's THC or CBG or CBN, you're using other receptors. So there's some benefit to the entourage effect, and it's cumulatively causing or being more efficient and better tolerated. So the closer to the plant,
yeah,
that's what I always think about. I think about how close are we to the actual plant that's growing. So that's wow.
That's the way to whole plant spectrum is what you want. And with the isolates too, they're realizing there's higher side effects. Cost is just, Epidiolex costs, I think at the starting dose, it's $32,000 a year.
Right.
And I have a seizure blend that I've kind of evolved over the years, and for a whole plant seizure blend, it can be as little as $1,500 a year for better product. So it's just, when it's just a matter of, is that family relying on the insurance coverage? If somebody is getting some superficial benefit and it's covered, that might be the way that they decide to go. But you can get much deeper benefits with the whole plant spectrum. So
yeah, I think that people are overwhelmed when it comes to cannabis, trying to figure out, where to go for information, how to start. Just basic questions. I mean, I know I was too. I felt like it was all like Greek to me when I first started investigating it. So it takes some persistence and knowing, where to find information that's not going to lead you down a rabbit hole that is not helpful. And so your products on Unity, I really am fascinated with what you're doing there with the combination of cannabinoids and targeted for specific, I don't know, specific states. Like I have the chart that you sent me, and let me just poke. I had it here, right on top.
Yeah, right here as well. So
yeah, do you want?
Yeah, it's in Unity. The other nice thing about
I wanted to show the website. I mean, I can.
You talked about how people have questions and formula. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, let me go to the website, and
yeah, I'd like to show. We offer a free 15-minute call with a nurse.
Right, that's beautiful. Let me just get it pulled up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we offer a free 15-minute consultation with a nurse for anybody that's considering purchasing or has purchased and has questions. And this is to help guide which product might be optimal, titration guidance and scheduling and, ruling out any pharmaceutical interactions, anything that might jeopardize the desired response. We're going to be problem solving that for free with anybody, any customers or potential customers. And so that's a really powerful tool as well. And if you go, here's the Unity website, it's up.
Yep.
If you go to the education section, you can actually just click right on that and say schedule a consultation or book a consultation, I think it says.
Book a consultation right here.
There it is. And there's Nurse Betty who answers our nurse line. And, if you scan down, you can choose a date and time on the calendar and she'll give you a call and answer your questions and offer that professional guidance. So yeah, you have to click schedule consultation and then the calendar pops up. So her bio is up there if you want to read about her. She's one of the nurses I've trained over the years, and she's, very experienced, and she understands the Unity products and how to guide patients to get the best possible results. And we also have a process we're working on right now where, if one of the baseline products, say somebody has anxiety, but the anxiety formula just isn't working for or getting the desired results, of course, we'll problem solve those things through the nurse line, but we'll also take requests for custom formulations where we can say, okay, well, you didn't respond well to this, so let's try this instead. So we're starting to offer that as well.
Wow. That's fabulous. Yeah, like for example, I'm Neurosupport. Now you've combined CBG with CBD, and then you have ones like anxiety ease and sleep with CBD and CBN, and I can personally recommend that one. I've used that with my son. So night pain assist, day pain assist, immune, all targeted for these specific states. It's just very, very well laid out and easy to find what you need here. So you're kind of like thinking, in my opinion, you're thinking of what it, I'm going to stop the screen share because I think
it's slowing it down.
Getting hung up. It's getting hung up. Yeah, the connection, we had a storm, so my cable went out earlier and I was a little nervous. So I think that might be what it's tying up just a little bit. So we'll fingers crossed.
No, that's fine. And I've got my thing here. We can go over the formulas one by one if you want to. Really what's behind these formulas is, and it's it's what I've done in this industry from day one, is following patient needs. And you see this problem of patients going and purchasing a bottle of CBD, maybe even from their local gas station, for God's sakes.
Right.
And it doesn't meet their need. And so 90% of people who purchase CBD for the first time don't go on to be long-term users because it doesn't do what they want it to do. And the number one might not be optimal quality, but number two, even if it is a good quality, which is rare, it's not really targeted for their specific symptom. And for example, like for anxiety, you want something that's a little sedative, you want something that's calming, something that's relaxing, versus for depression, you want something that's energizing and motivating and kind of the opposite. And so you can see how those two scenarios are going to need very different formulations.
Yeah. And
so this is really what's behind the Unity formulas. And we're starting to work. Mm-hmm.
Say the last part one more time.
Oh, I think I was just going to say, we're starting to work with practitioners as a really easy answer for them to guide patients to products that are really targeting their goals with, without really having to think about, oh, which compounds does research support for this patient's situation. That part's done for them. So, I mean, we have the anxiety ease that you mentioned, and it's CBD plus targeted terpenes, including linalool, which is found in lavender. So it has anti-anxiety effects in its own right, as well as the CBD. And so it's great for anxiety or stress or panic disorders, social distress, even mood calming. If somebody is, too agitated, it's meant to be sedative and calming and relaxing and relieve that anxiety. And so that's that one. And then we have the daytime pain assist, which is CBD plus CBG, and when you combine CBD and CBG, research supports that it increases the anti-inflammatory effects, which is often underlying pain problems. Plus, we have these terpenes that also have anti-inflammatory and pain relieving effects. So all of the ingredients are supported by research for these targets that we've put on the label. And so this one's good for pain and inflammation, even for immune disorders, inflammation, GI disorders, and inflammation. It's also pretty stimulating, so it's good for fatigue and daytime. It's meant to get you up and moving and relieve that pain. You can go exercise or go work or whatever you need to do. Obviously good for daytime use, not as optimal for bedtime. It might actually keep you up. And then we have our immune support, which is CBD plus CBG, once again, profoundly anti-inflammatory. And the terpenes are targeted for antibacterial effects, antiviral effects, and antiprotozoal effects. So this is kind of like our answer to the viral season and all this craziness happening in the world right now. This is a great option for immune support for somebody with an infection. And so obviously this with the CBG, it's pretty stimulating. So we recommend daytime use. But, it can improve immune function and balance that out, which is very important this time of year. Then we have our night pain assist, which is good for evening pain or pain insomnia, if pain is keeping you up at night and you can't sleep. And so this has the CBD plus some CBG, not too much because it's so stimulating. But then we have some CBN in there and the terpenes, once again, that are targeting pain. So, good for evening use of pain issues and relieving that. Obviously, very sedative with the CBN in there. It really promotes sleep. My daughter and I have just been using CBN just this year. It's pretty newly available in a consistent supply manner. And, what I've noticed is that it really seems to improve the depth and the quality of my sleep.
Really?
The quality and the depth of my sleep. And then the next morning, I don't have that hangover that sometimes you can get with other compounds of cannabis for sedation. You wake up feeling pretty bright and fresh and ready to go. So it's a really nice answer to that. And of course, all of these are readily available anywhere in the US without any legal concerns for the most part.
You can ship them.
And then we have our Neurosupport. This is one of my favorite ones. I have it on my desk and I use it if I need to concentrate or if, I'm feeling a little brain fogged or having trouble getting organized and getting to work and staying motivated. This is a great answer for that. And so it's really, we call it kind of our focus formula. It's great for things like ADD, ADHD, very stimulating. So I've seen this actually replace things like Ritalin and other ADHD medications. And it's so really the target here is neuroinflammation as well, which can be behind brain fog for a lot of people. And so it's good for all kinds of different disorders. It's really targeted to cross the blood-brain barrier to get the medicine up into the brain where it's needed. Great for things like seizures and focus and fatigue or depression. This is a great one for that. It's going to help balance the neurotransmitters and also decrease inflammation, which is associated with depression, brain inflammation. There's an article supporting that. So this is a great option for those uses. And then we have the sleep formula, which is CBD plus CBN. So it's more sedative and really meant for those that just have general insomnia, or anxiety at night, running thoughts, stress. So yeah, you can see these are very targeted use. We have more in the works. We're working on getting a source for THCV so we can do a gut balance and metabolic and weight loss and diabetes type of formulation. And we're also working on some that are neurocalming, specifically for autism behaviors and for things like seizures where they need that more sedative aspect.
Right. So you've learned
the
all
lineup.
this from patient. That's amazing. Nobody needs to go and get any pharmaceuticals now that this kind of way to access cannabis is coming forth. Yeah, it's so progressive. Yeah, nobody needs to go to the pharmacy.
We're trying to meet the needs.
Yeah. From working hands-on, I mean, like I'm reading through your bio and everything, and just you've spent
freezing.
I know, it's driving me nuts. Yeah, I'm afraid to say anything. Yeah, just your hands-on. It's not your fault. Your hands-on experience. Am I frozen? Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Your hands-on experience with thousands of patients, and kind of, I think one thing about there's a lot of trial and error, and I think that can be overwhelming for parents, especially if they're dealing with something like a seizure disorder. We don't want to take chances, but having somebody out there, and more people, green nurses and more doctors are becoming familiar with how to I don't want to say prescribe, but how to make recommendations for cannabis, so parents don't have to do as much of the thinking. Though I do believe that getting involved, and it's forced me, to not just rely on the medical system, but to really kind of take some of that autonomy back and be like really hands-on involved. And I think it forces you to really analyze behavior and think about, like you said, it could be pain related, inflammation. I mean, there's so many things that can't be said, that the more that you're working with your own children, or with other, in your case, with patients, the more you learn. And I think that's really seems to be what it takes. And you're working also, you are a professor. I don't know whether you go by that, but Professor Janna.
I guess I do now. No, I just started signing things Professor Champagne in the last month or so, and it's like, wow, that feels kind of cool. I love it.
So you've got the full circle. So now you're teaching at John Patrick University, and you're educating students. And tell me a little bit about that.
So just to go back to the parent thing really quickly, in my work, I always followed parents' instincts about their child. As a special needs mom myself, I've been, looked straight in the eye by a physician and told there's nothing to do here to improve your daughter's quality of life. And I've never regretted finding somebody that would actually listen to my instinct. And so parental instinct is so huge in this process. And that's why we've provided the nurse line, so that, somebody can access that information and get that help to really optimize the outcomes for their child or for themselves. So, but yeah, as far as John Patrick University, my first course launches January 11th. I'm in the process right now of getting it wrapped up and put online. Mm-hmm. And I'm teaching future healthcare professionals. My class is under the nutrition program, the nutrition bachelor's degree.
Wow.
And really we're training future health professionals all about cannabis as an alternative to pharmaceuticals, and teaching, all of these important aspects, like, when you weigh the risk versus benefit of cannabis versus the mainstream approach, what logically is the best choice. And oftentimes it is cannabis. I mean, mm-hmm. The exception would be like, are you having a heart attack, or you saw off a limb, or, there are times when you want to seek hospital and acute care in mainstream, sure. But chronic illness, cannabis is usually, the obvious better choice. So I'm really excited to be teaching medical professionals about this, which is going to help me reach even more patients than I could alone. So
yeah, I think that's another missing piece, or not missing piece, but one thing that's problematic is the doctors are just, immersed in the organ-based system. So there's not the continuity of between, the holistic overview. And it seems like by that hyper focus, it's hard to see the big picture. And that's what I found with cannabis, is it can, not only is it going to help with behavior, but it can help with seizures, or it can help this. You're killing two birds with one stone, even though you may need different formulations for those specific states. But Yeah, and the doctors are just, I found them to start to be becoming more responsive and more open to a parent that comes in and talks about using cannabis with their children. So while in the past,
Yeah,
probably even like a few years ago, no, I mean, it was very, very different. So people like you know,
it does
pushing
seem.
that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it is definitely picking up. I think, the medical professionals, when a patient is educated and empowered and does their experimentation with the cannabis and finds their optimal regimen, it's common to see them reducing their pharmaceuticals, improving their quality of life, improving their function. Their doctor's going to notice this because he's the one telling them how to reduce their pharmaceuticals that they're saying, I don't need anymore. And so that's usually when I hear from the medical professionals is, you worked with my patient and they're off this med and this med and this med and doing better. Like, tell me about this. But, just in general, there's still a lot of fear. There's still
Yeah,
a
in
lot of
fact, I
stigma.
just got a question. What amount do we try? How do we know what amount to try? And that's a really good question.
Yeah, it just depends on the situation. I always recommend starting really low dose. And so you'll notice on the Unity bottle, we actually have, some basic titration. It says start with 1/4 ml, which is like 5 milligrams, and work up from there. And basically you just start low, increase slowly as needed, and you stop where you feel good. The biggest consideration is if you're taking pharmaceuticals, you want to make sure you're spacing it correctly so you're not having any interactions. But realistically, other than that, it's very flexible. And patients, the goal was to kind of get to baseline dosing where you're taking it 2 or 3 times a day and you have good symptom management. But the nice thing is if you have a day where you're having a harder time, say you're more stressed out or you're more anxious or there's something happening, you're more painful because the storm blew in, like is happening here now with me, you can take extra and there's no risk of overdose. You can take as much of this as you need to manage your symptoms.
Yeah, instead
So
of
it's very flexible that way. And it's just powerful that, it's safe, unsurpassed safety profile. Whole plant cannabis has never killed anybody in 5,000 years of historical use.
right.
Versus, the opioids, which are killing patients every hour of every day. And those are prescribed, like candy. So it's just about learning and being empowered. And this is why we have our nurse line. She will review those things with anybody that's having difficulty with this or has questions that need, and they need answers in order to move forward. So we don't want education to be a barrier for people getting their optimal results from CBD.
So yes, anybody listening, you hear that, you can go to the unityformulas.com website, and the products that we're discussing are all on there. And, and it's not exclusive to, we're not just highlighting those products, but particularly because of the extensive experience Janna has with working with patients and growing and all the pieces, knowing kind of the, to tweak, and you can tweak these formulas if I think you said that before, but if somebody wants some specific formula that you don't necessarily have there, that you do offer that service as well. Is that correct?
We do. And it's basically our thought is it's very like algorithm related, and it's has to do with my experience with patients. So we have the baseline formulas where if you have anxiety, start with the anxiety blend. If that doesn't work, call the nurse line and she'll problem solve the most common barriers to getting your best results to the formula. And if it turns out to not be related to any of those things, we have a custom blend request form she'll send you, and you fill that out and we submit it, review it, and then we'll put together a formulation that has your name on the bottle.
That is so
and it's
cool.
just for you to try. So we really, and we're working towards genetically individualized formulations as well, because I have a background in nutrigenomics and ability to use genetics to further guide customized formulation. So that's coming down the pike at some point. So when I have the time to focus and train the nurse how to interpret all of that and apply it. So that's the barrier now. I'm one person, people.
Amazing.
Do it all.
Wow. Yeah, I think I think that was my biggest, and it's a lot of people in the TSC community's concern is if you have a child that's already on a lot of pharmaceuticals, starting them on cannabis can seem, especially if you're considering any interactions, can be a little daunting. So in my case, I just did it really slow and very slow, and it came down very slowly on, one thing at a time. And at the same time, it had cannabis to it was kind of like whoop, whoop, like that. So I don't know if you have any recommendations on parents or people that are on a lot of pharma and want to start that process, other than checking out your website and talking to a nurse. And, like you said, also doctors now are going there and referring their own physician, okay, hey, you could go here and you can get these things already made and the research to back it up. So pretty phenomenal, Janna.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I mean, as far as the pharma, call the nurse line, have it screened so you can be sure you're spacing it appropriately. It's very important.
Okay.
I always recommend getting stabilized and having your symptoms well managed on the cannabis before you see your doctor about weaning those pharmaceuticals. As nurses, we can't even advise on the pharma weeding because that's us advising against a doctor order, which is, unless it's a PRN, then we can because it's as needed. But if it's actually a prescription that says take this twice a day, we can't tell you to take it or to take smaller amounts. You have to see your doctor or your pharmacist for that.
Yeah, good for highlighting that. And I'm mentioning it as a parent, not as a, talking about my own offspring, not recommending that anyone else does that.
Well, and it just depends, there can be withdrawal symptoms to certain medications and things like that. I mean, when somebody's starting cannabis and they're taking anti-diabetics or antihypertensives, it's very important to be monitoring your blood pressure and your blood sugars because those will tend to come down with CBD.
Yep.
And so we're always teaching like this is possible, monitor, write it down, take that journal to your doctor and say, see, my blood pressure and blood sugar are down. Can we start reducing my meds? And we even have a handout for medical professionals to kind of explain this is an expected response. Here's the research supporting CBD for lowering blood pressure and blood sugar. So that this is also a way to reach more medical professionals and open their eyes. So we need to talk about your coupon before we.
Right. Yes. And I didn't mention integrated holistic care. There's resources and information on that site as well. So, and patient and downloadable, with signing up for your email list, you can get a downloadable patient guide. Is that correct? Yes. So integrated holistic. I'll put that in the post. When I put this video up, I'll link all these sites. So yeah, so the coupon, we have a coupon for anybody listening that wants coupon discount code for anybody out there listening that wants to order from Unity Formulas. If you get to the checkout, it's TSC 15. Is that correct? TSC 15. And you get a 15% discount on your order. So remember that. And I will also put that in the notes from this episode on the post that goes with this video. And if anyone has questions, you can reach out to Janna, you can reach out to me, and I will try to find somebody to answer them if I don't know them. And Janna is very responsive and also available. So yeah, so everybody out there, think about it. That's all I have to say about it. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for having me on the Holiday Marketplace here for TSC Talks. I think this is a great event and so appreciate you highlighting these important issues. So
thanks, Janna. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. All right, everybody, over and out from the market. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.